Life is about aptitude and attitude, and they kept instilling it in us. You are not your circumstances. If you have the right attitude and you show people that you have the aptitude, then people will see that in you. The right people will see that in you and give you an opportunity.
Kieno,
Nathan, good to meet you face to face.
100%. So, entrepreneurship is difficult, and I'm yet to meet someone that tells me otherwise.
You kidding me? Who told you that? No, it's not difficult. It's damn difficult.
It's damn difficult. If you could rate your overall well-being on a scale of 1 to 10,
Just dude.
what would it be and why?
What do you mean by well-being? Mental well-being, physical well-being, the whole package?
Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual.
Listen, for me personally, I think it's something that one strives towards. Anybody who tells me that they are in, 100% harmony would be lying to you, or they're smoking something, which can take you there and give you this harmonious feeling, I'm told, for a while, but these things do wear off. So I reckon a 6 out of 10. There's a lot more I can do. I'm 49. I spent, 29 years in media, 30. I decided at the tender age of 40-something to do something really crazy, which is, hey man, let's start your own thing, or let's take the thing you started in 2013 and it's turned into something really exciting. And that's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of stress. You end up grappling with growth mindset, abundance versus trying to hold on to things and figuring out whether you're doing the right thing because, hey, pension age is not too far away. So, you have those dilemmas. But generally, 6 out of 10. I'm getting there. I want to be a better dad. I want to spend more time with my kids. Family to me is very important. But I'm also not foolhardy. I have to try and create a much better work-life balance. But at the beginning, it's all slog.
What does a work-life balance mean to you?
I saw something on TikTok the other day, and I love TikTok, by the way. It's where I go to escape. And it went along the lines of the only people who will remember that you worked after 6 at night and worked through most of the weekends will be your kids. When you give birth or as a partnership, there's this child or children that you give birth to, you literally have other people's futures in your hand. And it's an awesome responsibility. On the one hand, you need to provide for them, give them everything they want. And we tend to quantify that as money, capital, buy clothes. But the one thing we tend to not focus on too much is literally being present as a father and a mother. For me, it's getting those right. Because my why at the age of 49, personally, is to give my kids the best opportunity, not just for themselves, for my grandchildren, etc., when they eventually get there, right? That to me is absolutely key. But I'm not one of those people that quantifies that by finances and finances only. I needed to have been present. So, for example, I don't have meetings before 9 o'clock in the morning. Anybody who thinks they're going to get me into a meeting at 8:30, right? Maybe once or twice I've done it. You're smoking your socks. Because I have this little thing. My son's 6 years old. I take him to school every day. I put his bag on his back. We walk to class. We have a great conversation. He hugs me a million times. And I have a specific place I need to park. It's in front of a black pole, in front of the window in his class. So when I walk back to the car, he dutifully sits there, waits for me and waves and waves and waves until he can't see me anymore. And that's my little ritual with my son. He'll remember that for the rest of his life, right? And the reason why I made that change, and it wasn't, I'm not the perfect father, oh my word. I can write books on that, but I'm not the perfect father. But the one thing that really hit me about a year ago is that I've got an old MacBook Pro sitting at home. The old bricks, 2012, they never break. You literally have to drive over them with a MyCity bus if you just want a little crack. And he came to me on more than one occasion and says, Daddy, let's play. Let's play meeting. So he wanted to sit next to me on the old MacBook, and he wanted to pretend to be in a meeting like Dad. And that hit me. If my kid thinks of me as the person who sat behind a computer all the time, then I'm not doing my job. So work-life balance, I need to put enough effort into my business to make it a success, because like our children, we have people who work in that business and we owe it to them and ourselves to make a success of it. But at the same time, when you have family, I don't care who says what. I hate these YouTube videos where people go, it's all about putting in all the effort, 24/7 a day. You sleep when you're dead. My response to that is, excuse my language, but bullshit, right? I think you can do both. So that's me. 6 out of 10. We're getting there.
I love it. What did fatherhood specifically teach you?
Patience. I'm a 21-year-old and a 6-year-old. Let's not get into that. That's one question that's off limits. You can ask me, I've got one who's 6 and the other one is 21. We'll talk about that over something stronger, like maybe a chai rooibos. But your responsibility as a parent, this dream that you have, that all of a sudden you're going to have your freedom when they get older, it doesn't exist. The level of need just, and especially when they hit their teens, man, when they're 14 going on 40, you need patience. You need to understand that I've learned, at least, and I can't tell other people how to run their lives, but you have to be present as a father or as a mother, irrespective of what's happening. If your kid's on drugs, if your kid's got depression, if your kid has, imposter syndrome and can't function, you can sit and preach to them, or you can be there at their side, helping them, not enabling them to do the wrong stuff, but helping them find their way through the toughest times. And you know what? That helps you with business as well. If something as precious as your child is going through a terrible time and a tough time, and my 21-year-old did, just being there as a father or as a mom is the one thing you can do and the one thing you should do. Too many people spend too much time trying to be overly judgmental and trying to get their kids to live their lives in the footsteps of the parents, or, my favorite, parents who would never have made it to university, now all of a sudden wanting to force a kid to go to university because they could never make it, so that they can all sit at dinner going, my child's a doctor, even though he doesn't want to be one. So you learn a lot of patience. You learn to actually care, right? And that is something that I think transfers to your business and the people within your business.
I want to go back to your childhood. How did growing up in the Cape Flats affect your thoughts and beliefs of who you are in the world?
Well, my mother and my father. I mean, I grew up in Elsie's River. I still go back to Elsie's River. I drive through there, and I've got mates and whatever. I take my kids through Elsie's River to see where I grew up. I mean, they grew up in Bloberg, nice house and whatever. I take them through to see, where I grew up. The dude who does all my electronics, he lives in a place called Reutevak, so I purposely drive through Elsie's River to get there. I take my kids with so that they could see. My upbringing, to answer your question, I had quite a loving upbringing. My parents gave a damn. My father was a postman. My mom worked at a factory called Symington. That's where I got my first exposure to bikinis. I didn't know what the hell they were, but anyway. She worked in a production line, ended up being a manager there. So I used to spend Saturdays. I used to look forward to it. Every Saturday, my dad used to be on a bicycle, and he used to post in everywhere, like, the big leather bags. Then he got this promotion, and he sort of had to clear out the red boxes, right? And it used to go into areas that we weren't allowed to go into, because this was during apartheid. Now, don't forget me, I'm not like Iqbal Survey, who complains about apartheid for his own gain. This is me just saying context-wise, right? We could never go into Durbanville. We'd never be able to go to Bloberg, right? But I used to be able to drive in those areas with my dad, and with this big bunch of keys, right? Because you have to open up all these boxes. And I used to look around and see all these places, and I used to be mesmerized by them. So my parents taught me, my mom in particular, that life is about aptitude and attitude. And they kept instilling it in us. You are not, and this sounds cliched, but my mom always used to say this, you are not your circumstances. If you have the right attitude and you show people that you have the aptitude, then people will see that in you. The right people will see that in you and give you an opportunity. And that's how I got into media.
Difference between those individuals that remain in an area like LT's compared to those that get out?
I don't necessarily think there is a difference. I think we need to look at who we're talking about and why they are there, because there's still amazing people who live there who could potentially be living in Bloberg, but they choose to remain in their community and add value, right? Yes, a lot of people just want to get out and give a better life for their kids. I think once you start having kids, you then start thinking, okay, do I want my kids to grow up in this environment where there's shooting, where people get stabbed, et cetera, et cetera? And then obviously as a parent, you go, no, I can afford to move out, and I move out. I don't think trying to summarize people by where they live is necessarily a helpful thing, because I do think it's a bit like the VCs going to 8 or 9 different geographies to find their best deals, right? It's counterintuitive. You could find the next unicorn sitting in Elsie's River, because remember, business and all these things we talk about is all about empathetically understanding what the challenges are. And if you can come up with a great solution, and you have a great there's product market fit, and it's infinitely scalable. You can go to LATAM, you can do it in America, you can do it in Europe, you can do it in wherever, and it solves someone's problem, but a really personal problem for someone. Those sort of things tend to scale a lot better, because you like health tech, for example. You know, if I can get access to a doctor at 50 Rand as opposed to 550 Rand, and they can do a diagnosis, and I can get all my scripts, and all of that gets done in the comfort of my own home, I'd rather do that than have to get on a bicycle and cycle to the closest town. So you don't have to be in Silicon Valley to come up with those solutions. So to your question, what's the difference? I don't think there is a difference. I think you could find stellar people still living in Elsie's River, and really hopeless people living in Bloberg. But I think your question really is
Poverty,
right? You need to surround yourself with the people you want to be. So I can tell you a story. When I was in matric, after watching Bold and the Beautiful, I read a newspaper and saw there's going to be this political rally down the road. I decided to go check it out, right? I got in, and my mom always said, put your foot in the door, aptitude, attitude. Met a guy, cameraman, old Jimmy Matthews, went up to him and said, hey, man, I've never seen a camera before. Can I look? And I looked through the viewfinder. It was gray. And I said, why is it gray? On TV, it's color. Anyway, he said to me, why don't you come and see what we do at Reuters? And I used to get on a train from Elsie's River Station into town, corner of Long and Ribbick Street. The building there, I think it was the 4th floor or the 3rd floor, I can't remember now. I used to go there every day to see what Reuters does. I used to make coffee for 6 months. And whenever I was there every day, I used to sit and ask questions about how you set up a camera. How do you do video editing? Can I mess around with it? How do you do sound? Can I mess around with it? This went on for months until one day they needed assistance and they knew that I had a reasonable level of proficiency because I kept asking bloody questions. And I got my gig. I started earning dollars. I mean, at the age of, what was it? I matriculated at about 17. So like 17 and a half, cruising into 18. I was busy, I did sound. I ran tapes because we didn't have all this fancy digital stuff. But I was busy doing work for Reuters, right? And then it all spiraled from there. The Reuters opportunity, you meet other people, and that's how it works. People say to me, how do I get out of poverty? You're not going to think your way out of poverty. You're going to do your way out of poverty. You can either hang around the same people who smoke tik and drink alcohol. My mother said to me, if you sound like a gangster, I'm going to thing you. All right, we won't use that word right now. But and she always said to us, you need to be a better version of not a better version of the people around you, but you need to be the best version of yourself. And you don't need drugs. You don't need any of these things to drive a nice car. And she instilled that all the time. So my response to that is put yourself in a position of luck. It's just because you happen to be poor, nobody necessarily knows that. Save up a bit of money. Find someone who you can hang around and learn from. And that, my dear friend, is your key. It's the key that opens the door. When the door opens, it's your attitude and your aptitude that'll take you forward. And that's essentially what my mom taught me. And I would say that to anybody living in squalor and in poverty right now. A lot of people would say it's easier than done, but you have to do it. If you don't do it, you're going to continue being programmed mentally by what you have around you. And that's not a healthy thing.
You continue to put yourself in those places like you described, till eventually you were in the room with arguably one of the greatest leaders of this lifetime, Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
What did that experience provide for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I never interviewed him or anything like that, but I was around him being a sound man. And I remember working with Reuters and WTN and having to cover this guy as a sound man, just watching him. I never fathomed back then that this was just history unfolding. If I think back now, I'm going, wow, you just get caught up in the moment, right? And you do what you do because you're a journalist, or you're not really a journalist, you're a person gathering sound. You know, and you just want to do better than anybody else around you. But the one thing that did strike me about Nelson Mandela was his humility, how he cared for kids, and how he never, ever liked people who were in a weaker position. He didn't like them being trampled on. I know on a couple of occasions when his security used to be rough with some of the younger journalists and soundmen and people in there, he would actually stop them and go, stop doing that. Stop doing that. Just because you have power doesn't mean you have to exert that power over someone in a way that demeans them. And that's my lasting impression of Nelson Mandela when I started, doing the whole Reuters stuff. And then, of course, I covered Mandela and his last couple of months to a year with NBC New York. I was a consultant correspondent, worked with Tom Brokaw and a couple of really interesting people. We never got to see Mandela, but I spoke to his family. We obviously needed to give NBC and ITV all the latest information, and we built relationships with his family, and we used to get a lot of that information coming through. But once again, the love around the man, the respect in those hardened offices in New York, I remember phoning, I was at Mark Lukasevich who hired me, and they wouldn't stop shining a light into Mandela's house, this TV crew. And the security came out and said the guy's got cataracts. So I said to them, I won't continue working here until you actually, I said, because I've got to live here tomorrow. All right? You're going to bugger off to America. And I mean, they got involved and they were very respectful. The senior guys said, no, we're not going to do that. And they sort of capitulated. So, I mean, he was a humble man. He had every reason to hate. He didn't. All he wanted to do was try and build unity. All he wanted to do, especially with young people in education, which is also one of the things, the seeds that sort of started flourishing in me, you know, the passion for education, the passion for giving young people the right start in life. I mean, that was totally all over the place with him. I mean, it was all he was about. That's why you have the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund and all the rest of it. So, yeah, I mean, he left a lasting impression.
And what was appealing for you to become a radio host?
I didn't wake up one day going, I want to become a radio host. It is a series of putting your foot in the door. So I eventually became a cameraman video editor at the SABC. And I used to like listening to Good Hope FM. Made my way down to Graham White. He was the vanilla thriller at the time. And I used to say to him, can I watch you? Can I watch what you do? And I used to make him tea, coffee. And then we had such a good relationship. He wanted to go out and have a bit of a smoke. And then I used to mix the songs for him. He showed me how to mix the songs. And eventually he says, hey, why don't you try, doing a radio thing? Like, we're looking for weekend jocks. Why don't you try doing a demo? I'm like, with this voice, no damn way. Anyway, so we did. We went downstairs, basement of the SABC in Sea Point, and we did reel-to-reel editing. Do you know what reel-to-reel editing is? All right, it's a big reel and a big reel and then tape, like the old cassettes. And the way you edited that audio was cutting and splicing it. So the tape used to run over the head, and then you used to go, you could hear, okay, that's where the voice is starting, and you move it slightly back. You cut it. You snip out the bit you don't want, and you splice it with tape. That's how we used to do editing. Anyway, I got a gig as a afternoon presenter on Good Hope. A couple of years after that, at about 21, I think I was. And I did Kieno's Saturday Sensation. And that went well. I sounded terrible. But I happened to cling on to radio, since 20, actually, to much later.
What's your opinion on radio stations currently? Will they still be relevant?
Dude, you want me to answer that? So here's my question. I'll ask you a question. How many 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 23-year-olds do you know that listen to traditional radio each and every day and watch traditional TV? Percentage of people, give me a thumbs up. What percentage of them?
Less than 10.
Right. Okay. Where are their eyes mostly fixated on?
Social media.
They're mobile first. Right. Okay. So if you're 18 today, you're going to be 28 in 10 years from now. I mean, even I know that, right? So you're 28 years from now. You're probably junior management, maybe making your way to middle management. Young people are progressing very quickly. You're going to have a say over budgets. Currently, radio stations, most of them, tend to do the 30-second ad model where they want people to come in, take out ads, pay us for those ads, and who knows, people might buy your product. You can't even measure it, right? But this is what a lot of these executives are still doing. They're going back to what happened pre-COVID. And I think it's a mistake. I think talk radio is almost insulated a bit because what you're doing there is but even that, it can happen on a podcast, mobile first. But I don't think radio stations are going to survive if they continue on this trajectory. I think what they need to do is figure out how they become relevant for the mobile first generation. How do you do that? And it's not even about platform. It's about understanding psychographics, understanding the qualitative behind what are the discussions that a lot of these people have. It's also about how do you become niched but global. Because in my mind, media, generally speaking, Yes, you'll have regional media, you'll have community media, which I think will still have reach, by the way, because it speaks about issues close to home. But your bigger commercial radio stations, what are they going to do when other niched but global platforms start creeping into their market that are mobile first, that are more relevant with content? They don't just take a traditional radio show, cut it up and call it a podcast. So I think they're going to be in trouble if they don't get their act together.
And at what point did you start thinking about entrepreneurship?
When I had my first interview with Raymond Ackerman, his story absolutely blew me away. I had the privilege of interviewing him on radio years ago. And then I was invited to come to his office, and I met with him and spoke to him about the four legs of the table and all the other stuff, right? And I was just mesmerized by this man. And I thought to myself, wow, he started this on a back foot with no capital. And look at what he's turned this business into. So he was my initial inspiration. And I've always in the back of my mind wanted to figure out, how do I have my own independence? How do I become an entrepreneur? And another little fire was lit when I think it was 2012, 2013. I was invited by the Dutch government to go on a tour to listen to some of the tech businesses there. And the one thing that hit me, I was very excited until these folks started talking. It's a bit like someone who does natural language processes going, oh, it's about syntactic parsing and you need to do this. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? What do you actually do? And that inspired me to get involved in a little business that the aim was at least to start teaching tech businesses how to tell stories. And then that little bug hit me. And then I sort of went on trying to do my thing, trying to do a little business. It was rather crappy. I mean, I tried my best. But as I was growing my profile on radio, more opportunities became available. And started growing the business more, started doing a little bit of work for Airports Company South Africa and one or two other people, right? Metro Rail. Just people who wanted, they really wanted to get their story right, and they wanted to interact with their audience, customers, a lot more effectively. And that's where that sort of started. And then from there, I sort of said to myself, hold on, I actually should study something. Having a diploma in journalism isn't good enough. So you invite me to join a board of a business school, right? And I'm sitting here with a national diploma. So I decided, okay, so I did an honors, small enterprise consulting, managed to cum laude that, like lastminute.com, but I managed to cum laude it.
Congrats.
And thank you. And then things just sort of progressed from there. I also started talking about business and entrepreneurship on my show, even before all of that I've just mentioned, because I was so sick and tired of listening to Skopskid and Dornet, right? And hearing about all the negative stuff. And when I started hearing the entrepreneurial stories, I'm like, this is perfect. We can talk about this. This will encourage people. And then I became the talk show host on Cape Talk, who always spoke about business and innovation. I then built loads of relationships there with Kit van Sale and a whole host of other people. And was just the oak who spoke about innovation and business. Then I had COVID in 2020 and decided I'm sick and tired of the negativity, listening to half an hour news all the time, every half an hour, listening to how crap life is, and said to my wife, I think I don't want to do this anymore. I was also chief strategy officer. At the time, I'd progressed to chief strategy officer at a dev firm called Double I, they're now called Metalogics. So making a move was, I think, quite fortuitous at the time.
Was
and
that transition easy?
No. You know what? You've done something for 29 years of your life, and now all of a sudden you decide you want to throw yourself into something. You want to throw yourself into something totally different, something you have absolutely very little clue about, other than some of the conversations you've had and some of your initial learnings as a business person. And then you've got kids and a roof over your head. You know, I think, it's very easy to say no to that, and let's just try and stick to the thing that'll give me a pension one day. I chose not to. But after leaving, people like Rob Paddock, who I'd interviewed a couple of times, had reached out to me to do some work at UCT Online High School. Then my friend Stefan Egberg, who I built a good relationship with, said, listen, we've got this building available, not quite sure what we're going to do with it. And we sort of ideated this concept of Innovation City, which was totally different to every other co-working space on the continent.
Could you walk us through what Innovation City is and perhaps the backstory to it?
Okay, so, we launched this darn thing during COVID. Everybody at the time was saying, everybody wants to stay at home. Nobody wants to come into work. And of course, none of these people had kids at home, of course. If you had kids at home, you'd want to go into the office. But we started asking ourselves the question, why don't people want to go into a traditional office? Does the traditional office actually serve a purpose other than you clocking in, sitting on Facebook, watching TikTok, getting some work done? What value does an office actually offer? Stefan's initial idea was Sofia Antonopoulos in France, right, where you have startups and VCs all in the same space. But we took that one step further, and I said, why don't we bring corporates in? So what are we? We actually an innovation enablement hub. So what we do is we accelerate innovation by bringing the right people together, right? By giving founders insights that help them grow as leaders and give them access to market through the networks that we bring into Innovation City. So we are access to market play, we a grow yourself as a founder play, and that pretty much is it. Why do you start a business? You want to make a success. You want to take your solution and you want to take that solution globally. So how do we do it though? And that's easier said than done, right? You have to build this bridge. No one else has done it. We used our networks initially. We said, okay, this is what we're doing. We've got this Innovation City. It's going to be like Studio 54 for innovation, right? It's not going to look like a normal workspace. It's going to look like a boutique hotel / club, but a place where we get shit done. It's not coming here, dressing up like a pop, and then showing everybody how sexy you are. That's not what life's about. It's about actually connecting you to the right people. So one of the first things we decided was culture is an important thing. So we don't like neither of us like working with arseholes. So the first thing we put in place was a no arsehole policy. We then decided to do what everybody thought was crazy, start talking to corporates. Before we even had startups, scale-ups, any of those people, we started talking to corporates and said to them, here's our vision. We want to bring the full value chain of innovation into this building, right? We want to make sure that as a corporate, you've got access to the most amazing skills, digital skills. You've got nimble startups. You've got all of these really cool people, and they're all there for you to help you differentiate your business as a corporate. Anyway, we tried it. Ian Williamson, CEO of Old Mutual, was the first one. He loved the vision. We still don't have a business plan, by the way. So he loved the vision. And we ended up speaking to Vuyo Mpako, who's MD of Next 176, which is Old Mutual's growth and innovation team. And a lovely dude called John was running it as well. Within about a month, they signed and they moved in. Stefan and myself both knew people at Ayoba and MTN, Ero Terjana. We reached out to him. At the same time, Ayoba got a new CEO. Burak, and a visionary. And he said he didn't want to be in this old corporate building that they were in, and they were looking to be part of an ecosystem, because that's really what Ayoba was about, super app. It's about building ecosystems. So they moved in. So now imagine our luck. When you have a company attached to a JSE-listed company or invested in by a JSE-listed company, and you've got a JSE-listed company or their growth and innovation team moving in, people now start asking questions. Then I reached out to my mate, Zach George, who started Launch Africa Ventures. And he was sitting in a co-working space, wasn't happy there. And he said, and being Zach, he wanted a deal. So I said, okay, we'll give you a deal. So we had the most prolific seed to pre-series A VC in the building. Then on top of that, we decided, okay, how do we add value on a daily basis? How about delivering content? Really valuable content that will make founders grow, that will make people think twice about innovation, will help them think about the way they extract data, leadership, all these things, right? That'll help founders grow. Every Thursday we execute events and we post it on LinkedIn. And we bring some of the biggest names we know, and we make this thing look a lot bigger than it actually is. And we did that religiously. I mean, it wasn't all perfect, but we executed each and every week. And today, we've got Polarium, which is a Swedish unicorn. Their vice president, Sub-Saharan Africa, sits in our building. Right? They do lithium-ion batteries. They have a production facility out in Montague Gardens, so their VP sits in our building. The CEO, group CEO of MTN Digital, Christian, sits in our building. The CEO of Ayoba sits in our building. We have ShopRite X Customer Innovations as a partner business in the building. We've got Momentum Holdings Innovations in the building. We've got Guard Risk in the building. And I go on and on and on. And then we have some really exciting scale-ups and high-growth startups and VCs. So Endeavor we've got Launch Africa, we've got E4E Africa, we've got Savant moving in. And we can go on. You know, there are lots of VCs who are either associated to the place. The Norscan 22 Impact Fund for Africa, they don't sit with us. But Hans Ortelen, who's one of the first people that did a significant investment into Spotify, is a good friend of ours and is always in the building and keeps telling us that we're like the Y Combinator for Africa. So when a guy like that tells you that, you like start getting more courage to try and push this and make this work, right? And that's what we've done. You know, it's literally about creating value for the people in the business, making sure that you move, make sure that your P&L is not always red. We bring the black to your P&L through giving you access to market and to making you think differently as a founder.
And being surrounded by this ecosystem and these individuals in this ecosystem, what have you learned about innovation?
So what have I learned about innovation? Innovation, there are a couple of things about innovation. I think the most exciting innovations emanate from spaces where some of the most diverse people and ideas come together. So diversity for me is really, really key when it comes to innovation. If everybody sings from the same hymn book, you don't innovate. I would even go so far as to say you might be talking to someone in a different vertical to yours that seemingly has nothing to do with what you do as a retailer, for example. But if you're spending time with a C-suite person or someone involved in the innovation space, I'm telling you, magic can happen because the things you least expect to learn, that you do end up learning as a result of finding out about how other people do things, can actually impact your business. And it really it really helps you think about things differently. It takes you out of your comfort zone, which is why when we at Innovation City bring C-suite people together, and we don't care what your, like when we do our lunches, we don't care what you're doing, as long as you're in the innovation space and you're in the tech innovation space, and you might be working in retail, you might be doing, I don't know, ECDs or whatever. But there's always a link, right? So diversity for me is key. Understanding people is one of the most important things in business generally, but in innovation, to innovate, you need to empathetically understand who you're fixing stuff for, right? It's easy to sit in a boardroom and go, hey, I'm going to innovate. I think poor people want this. I mean, a friend of mine, Miles Kubeka, he runs a little accelerator, not a little, it's quite a successful one, called Wakanda. And they initially put these containers in townships and thought, you know what? Poor people want the cheapest stuff. They learned very quickly that If you're living in a poorer area, it's aspirational. Your money only goes so far. And if you spend it, you want to spend it on things that you perceive to be good quality. Right? So if you don't empathetically understand your market, you're going to make assumptions that could cost you. And it could cost you dearly if you're in the tech innovation space and you decide to employ all these coders running this tech stack, building out this beautiful thing, and then you realize, oh shucks, R1 million later, we should have done something different. 500,000 down the line, you've pivoted. What could you have done with the 500,000? So you need to understand people. That is absolutely essential.
Speaking about people, what do business owners and founders need to know about a thriving culture?
Yeah, you see, this thriving culture thing is quite a loaded question, right? But if you were to ask me what culture is what people say behind your back when you're not there. So if you work in a space and everybody's smiling at you, but you're a blinking dictator, and you upset people and you drive them to tears, but they don't want to show you that you've defeated them because you're this fearless leader who's a real arsehole, you're going to think everybody likes you. But when your back is turned, it's what people are willing to do for you, say about you, that counts. And that to me is culture. How you build that culture. There are people, by the way, who thrive in, and I think Netflix is probably one of those businesses, where they thrive. I mean, they'll allow you to make up your own mind about what you want to do, how you want to do it, but they'll chop you very quickly if you don't fit their mold and their culture. There are people who thrive in this, hey, let's get things done. We don't sleep 24/7. There are people like that who thrive, and for them to work, I mean, that's their own thing. They work together, and for them, it's a great culture to be in. They don't like this touchy-feely, don't be an arsehole type thing, right? But for us, culture is respect. For us, culture is creating an environment where the water isn't poisoned, where it's easy to communicate and collaborate with people without feeling that people are going to stab you in the back. So culture is not as simple as everybody saying we should all sing Kumbaya, my lord. Different strokes for different folks. We choose not to work with arseholes.
I love that. Kieno, thank you. I want to acknowledge you for just showing up in this space from being a talk show host and not just settling, but making impact, being an entrepreneur, impacting in education, changing policies, and really just doing things like you. I mean, you are someone that you lead by example. You're not just speaking about things, but you're actually doing it. So I want to acknowledge you for doing that, and you inspire someone like me to do the same. So thank you. Again, thank you for giving me your time and your words of wisdom.
I want to thank you for doing what you're doing. You've exited a business. You're pivoting. You're doing this. I love your vision for, your podcast, what you want to do on the continent. So I also draw inspiration from the work you're doing, Nathan. And thanks for inviting me. It's been a really lekker chat.
No problem. Anytime.